The Academy Award nominations are to be announced in about a week or so, and I'm going to do a video predicting who I think will be nominated in all the above the line categories and a few below the line categories that I take interest in. The only categories I'm going to spend proper time on are the acting categories though, as those are my favourite ones. So I'm going to start with Best Actress. I'm going to list them in order from most likely to get a nomination to least likely to get a nomination. There are two actresses that are locks here, Demi Moore for The Substance and Mikey Madison for Anora. Just a few months ago it seemed like a stretch to put Moore in because The Substance is a horror film and the Academy is biased against genre films such as horror or sci-fi. But given that she hasn't missed in any of the precursors, she actually seems like the most likely to be nominated, and she may even win. This is a film that will resonate immensely with actors in Hollywood, and Moore has the career narrative needed. It is time for her to finally get her flowers. The Golden Globes haven't much bearing on the Oscars, but she did win there and gave a really fantastic speech, so we should be excited for her. As far as Mikey Madison goes, she is a lock for a nomination for the same reason as that she hasn't missed any precursors. However, she is a newcomer, so she may not have a chance at winning because the Academy may consider it Moore's last chance to win and Madison can get nominated again in the future. The Academy isn't adverse to awarding young actors though, and she is doing amazing work in a culturally progressive role. Next on my list I have Carla Sofia Gascon for Emilia Perez. I haven't yet seen this film, so this makes it a little tricky for me to forecast, but she hasn't missed any precursors and this film seems to be something that the Academy will go for. They love musicals and they love socially progressive stories, so despite having little context on this one, Gascon is my third place. I don't really see her missing. My fourth slot is occupied by my personal favourite performance of the year, male or female, and that is Cynthia Erivo for Wicked. She hasn't missed any precursors, but the reason I have her in fourth place is because I do think there is a small chance that she could be snubbed, as unjust as that would be. The Academy often shocks. That's what's fun about the game. We don't really want to predict every slot perfectly. Every year there is a wild card or some big snub. Last year was Margot Robbie being snubbed and Annette Bening receiving the nomination. In 2022, Andrea Riseborough also kind of came out of nowhere at the last minute. Despite this, we have to consider that Erivo is a prior nominee, so in fact actually the only prior nominee on this list, so the Academy do like her, and she is doing a lot here. The Academy loves stories about marginalized people, and they love musicals. They just don't always take fantasies seriously. However, this is The Wizard of Oz, which is an iconic story. If I had to put money on it, I'd say Erivo is receiving a nomination. Now the fun one to predict is the fifth place slot, because this one could go to a few people, and I am honestly not confident with who to choose. I also haven't yet seen any of the performances I'm about to mention, so I am taking a risk here. There are a few names floating around in my head. One is Marianne Jean-Baptiste for Hard Truths, who I think is a genuine possibility. My wild card choice is Pamela Anderson for The Last Showgirl, because she did receive the SAG nomination, which is the precursor that has the most overlap with the Oscars. I also think Anderson would be the coolest nomination. My other choice is Angelina Jolie for Maria, who I think is deserving but is likely out of the race at this point. My instinct is saying Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here. She won the Golden Globe, which once again doesn't have much bearing on the Oscars, but I just have to go with my gut, so she is taking my fifth slot. So my final predictions for Best Actress are Demi Moore for The Substance, Mikey Madison for Anora, Carla Sofia Gascon for Emilia Perez, Cynthia Erivo for Wicked, and Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here. I'm not going to spend much time on the Best Actor category, as I feel it is the most obvious and uninteresting category this year. Not because the performances aren't great, I just don't think there are any alternates. I think it is pretty easy to predict the five here. My first slot goes to Adrian Brody for The Brutalist. He is amazing in this movie, and he is a previous Oscar winner, and he has already won the Golden Globe, so I think he's definitely a lock and likely to win. My second slot goes to Timothée Chalamet for A Complete Unknown. Unfortunately, I haven't yet seen this film, but the Academy loves biopics. Rami Malek won for his performance as Freddie Mercury, and Chalamet is a previous nominee. He is young, but considering that he had another great performance this year in Dune Part 2, the Academy may want to award him for all that he is doing. He is the only real challenge to Brody, I think. A dark horse win could come from Ralph Fiennes for Conclave. He takes my third slot because this is a film that the Academy will absolutely go for, and Fiennes is a previous nominee. Somehow he has never won. I don't think he will win, but there is a path because he has been doing great work for years, and the Academy may want to give this to him as a career award, knowing that they can award Chalamet later in his career. My fourth slot is occupied by Colman Domingo for Sing Sing. Domingo is shedding light on a group of people that deserve more grace as they are thrown away by society. You don't often get stories about prisoners that treat them as people with worth regardless of their wrongdoings. Domingo is the shepherd of the story. He was nominated last year for Rustin. To me, the fourth and fifth slot are nominees that are just happy to be there, so Domingo won't win, but I do think that he is getting a nomination because he is fantastic in Sing Sing. Now, this fifth slot has been a little up in the air throughout the season, but I do think it is going to Daniel Craig for Queer. I really want to see this film. I haven't had a chance yet. I have heard it is really weird and that many voters will not go for it, but Craig has been doing great work for years and has never been nominated. This is the time to do it, and Luca Guadagnino has directed his actors to nominations before. So my final predictions for Best Actor are Adrien Brody for The Brutalist, Timothée Chalamet for A Complete Unknown, Ralph Fiennes for Conclave, Colman Domingo for Sing Sing, and Daniel Craig for Queer. Next category is Best Supporting Actor. This is a bit of a tricky category to predict, but the frontrunner is clearly Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain. I'm 99% sure that he will win, so there isn't really much to say here. He's great in the film. My second slot is going to Edward Norton, who has been doing great work for years. He's also playing a real person in A Complete Unknown. The Academy loves that, so I don't see him missing here. My third slot goes to someone I wouldn't have predicted early in the season. It's Yura Borisov for Anora. Borisov is doing great subtle work, particularly in the third act of Anora, that brings a lot of heart to the film. The Academy doesn't go for subtle work as much, but I do think he is getting in here. My fourth slot is going to Guy Pearce for The Brutalist. Now, I originally would have put Guy Pearce in my second slot, but then he somehow missed at SAG, so that puts him down here for now, although I'm sure the Academy will be lit up by The Brutalist more than we expect them to be. Pearce has been overlooked for a long time. His work in The Brutalist is quite layered. He deserves to be here, and I think he will be. My fifth slot is the one I'm taking a risk on. Many have thrown around names such as Clarence Macklin for Sing Sing or Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice. Sure, those are possible, but I would love for Macklin to get it. Hell, I would love it if they gave it to Jonathan Bailey for Wicked. I think this is going to Denzel Washington for Gladiator 2 though. The Academy isn't going to care much for Gladiator 2, but they love Washington and they always nominate him, and you know what, he is really awesome in the movie, so I think this is a fun and safe choice. My final predictions for Best Supporting Actor are Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain, Edward Norton for A Complete Unknown, Yura Borisov for Anora, Guy Pearce for The Brutalist, and Denzel Washington for Gladiator 2. Now for the most chaotic category this season, Best Supporting Actress. This one has been fun to follow because, short of the top two locks, I'm very insecure about this category. My front runner to win is Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez. She won the Golden Globe and is in a film that is sure to get a lot of nominations. This is the time to honor Saldana because she has graced our screens for years in literally the biggest films in history, and this is the first time that she is going to be performing on a large scale, more as herself, bare bones, no makeup, no franchise. For someone who has entertained millions in all the Avatar films, as well as Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, it's kind of time to recognize her in a role like this. The second lock is Ariana Grande for Wicked. The Academy isn't shy about awarding newcomers, so it is possible that Grande could still take the trophy. Both her and Saldana are in musicals, but what is special about Grande is that it's a comedic role in a fantasy film, which are both genres that the Academy seldom recognizes. Grande had many naysayers, so it is going to be great to see her recognized. The rest of this category is just all over the shop, but I'm going to give my third place slot to Isabella Rossellini for Conclave. She doesn't have much screen time, but I have had a strong gut feeling about this nomination ever since I saw one pivotal scene in the film. The Academy loves their veterans, and not only have they been known to nominate actors with limited screen time, they have even awarded them before, with prominent examples being Anthony Hopkins for The Silence of the Lambs, and in this very category, Judi Dench for Shakespeare in Love. My fourth slot is going to a performance that I may not include if I was fully trusting my head, but let's trust heart for a bit and put Felicity Jones for The Brutalist. Now, the reason I'm not too confident about this one is that she just hasn't been doing that well throughout the season. She missed at SAG, but the Academy did nominate her for The Theory of Everything about a decade ago, so they may see her as overdue for another nomination, and that will lead them to recognize her. I think that this performance is tremendous and absolutely deserves to get in, and I will consider it a big snub if it doesn't. It will depend on how much they like the film, which is hard to predict at this point. It is long, and Jones only appears in the second half. She is mostly in service to the protagonist, but isn't that the role of a supporting player anyway? She has a few key scenes that could secure her the nomination. My fifth slot is going to be Wild No Matter What, and so I've gone with a potentially controversial option in Jamie Lee Curtis for The Last Showgirl. I haven't yet seen this film, but I hear that she is typically unhinged in it. I don't see the film getting much love elsewhere at the Oscars, but both her and Pamela Anderson received SAG nominations, and so that's telling. You may argue that sometimes SAG makes out their choices that do not translate to the Oscars, but remember, Curtis recently won for Everything Everywhere All at Once, which was a small and out there performance that no one even expected to get nominated, let alone win. That was a career award, no doubt, therefore she mightn't be recognized here, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that I won't be surprised if she pops up. As far as others that may take this spot instead, you may say Monica Barbaro for A Complete Unknown. She came out of nowhere to nab the SAG nomination. You may say Danielle Deadwyler for The Piano Lesson, but the Academy isn't going to take much notice of that film. My hunch says that this fifth spot is a battle between Curtis and Margaret Qualley for The Substance. I could see Qualley getting in here. I was initially skeptical, but if the Academy really loves The Substance, she may get recognised. And I tell you what, it would be one of the coolest nominations of the night. In fact, I'm now tempted to switch her and Curtis, but I won't. My final predictions for Best Supporting Actress are Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez, Ariana Grande for Wicked, Isabella Rossellini for Conclave, Felicity Jones for The Brutalist, and Jamie Lee Curtis for The Last Showgirl. Alright, the acting categories are the ones I'm truly invested in, so I'm just going to shoot through the rest of these as to avoid the video going on too long. My predictions for Best Director, starting with the front runner, are Brady Corbet for The Brutalist, Sean Baker for Honora, Jacques Audiard for Emilia Perez, Coralie Farge for The Substance, and James Mangold for A Complete Unknown. My predictions for Best Picture in order of likelihood, starting with the frontrunner, are Emilia Perez, Honora, The Brutalist, Wicked, Conclave, A Complete Unknown, Dune Part 2, The Substance, Sing Sing, and Nickel Boys. My predictions for Best Original Screenplay, starting with the frontrunner, are A Real Pain, Honora, The Brutalist, The Substance, and Saturday Night. Predictions for Best Adapted Screenplay, starting with the frontrunner, are Conclave, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, Sing Sing, and Nickel Boys. My predictions for Best Animated Feature, starting with the frontrunner, are Flow, The Wild Robot, Memoir of a Snail, Inside Out 2, and Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul. My predictions for Best International Feature, starting with the frontrunner, are All We Imagine as Light, I'm Still Here, The Seed of the Sacred Fig, The Girl with the Needle, and How to Make Millions Before Grandma Dies. My predictions for Best Cinematography, starting with the frontrunner, are Anora, The Brutalist, Dune Part 2, All We Imagine as Light, and Wicked. Predictions for Best Editing, starting with the frontrunner, are Conclave, Anora, The Brutalist, The Substance, and Nickel Boys. Predictions for Best Production Design, starting with the frontrunner, are Wicked, Dune Part 2, The Brutalist, The Substance, and Gladiator 2. My predictions for Best Makeup and Hairstyling, starting with the frontrunner, are Wicked, The Substance, A Different Man, Gladiator 2, and Dune Part 2. My predictions for Best Costume Design, starting with the frontrunner, are Wicked, Gladiator 2, Dune Part 2, The Substance, and Conclave. My predictions for Best Original Score, starting with the frontrunner, are Challenges, Conclave, The Brutalist, Wicked, and The Wild Robot. My predictions for Best Sound, starting with the frontrunner, are The Brutalist, Dune Part 2, Alien Romulus, Wicked, and A Complete Unknown. My predictions for Best Visual Effects, starting with the frontrunner, are Alien Romulus, Better Man, Dune Part 2, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and Wicked. Thanks for listening. Let me know what your predictions are in the comments below. I might do a review of the Oscar broadcast if I have things to say. I guess I'd talk about the winners and reflect on my predictions, so stay tuned for that potentially.